Alright, the contest has ended. Today is October 5 or October 5th, and we have two winners. The second place winner from YouTube, which is the second upvotes or thumbs up to their description, is Body Improv. They're going to get the Tomb of Sir Edgar Goodbody sent to them. And then the first place winner, which was on Facebook, on the post on Facebook, with 80 likes, is Lost Brown. And she will receive this house with the custom lighting that she requested from the post. So she's going to get the spookiest house on the block. And she wants controllable LEDs, multicolor, that she can control speed, brightness, color change, etc. So we're going to be sticking in some USB mood lighting, but I'm going to change it from USB to a standard power supply for a couple of reasons. One, the USB cord is generally really short on these guys. It's usually only about 4 feet. To me, that's short. Two, they run at 5 to 24 volts. It says right there. And I probably should do it that way so you can actually see it and it won't be upside down. So you don't have to flip your phone or your computer monitor. Especially if you got a desktop, it's a big monitor. Anyhow, the 5 volts, which is the minimum it can run at, the lights aren't as bright, nor do they rotate as fast or respond to the controller as fast. So when you press the button, it's a little slower. If you watch the Iron Man mask, where I changed the Iron Man mask to make it look a little bit better, more like the movie, it works better at 12 volts. So I'm probably going to make this a 12 volt house with a 12 volt power supply that will be shipped with the house, not in the same box as this box here, but that way it doesn't damage the porcelain, but she can plug it into a wall socket and have a fully controllable house from a distance across the room. So we're going to get started. I'm going to prep the bench, get the lights set up. Here's the roll. I already took it out of the box, so that way I could verify all the parts were inside. But sometimes when you buy these, people open them at the stores and pull out the controller or this part with the IR sensor. So this video is going to be the build of this house. It should be pretty simple. But the build, the power supply, the gluing and adhering of everything, the repairing of the pieces that are missing, or excuse me, detached, they're not missing, they're in the box. And then the installation of some strip lights. She wants it as bright as possible with the ability to control the intensity. So I'm probably not going to get this full roll in, which is, I think it's 16 feet. Sorry, it says it's 6.4 feet. My other ones are 16 feet. I don't think I'm going to get 6 feet of light in here unless I throw it in as a circle, and that's just going to look stupid. So we're going to make some strips, maybe get 2 or 3 rows in there, make this house as bright as possible, fully controllable. We'll see about popping the IR sensor up in the window or behind her or in the garage next to the casket or this window, wherever it's going to fit the best and not look out of place. So just like in the Iron Man mask video, we're going to cut this and extend the wires for the infrared sensor. So it's going to be a little technical on some parts, but when we're done, it's going to be a beautiful looking house, fully customizable lighting. So stay tuned. Alright, here's the house, y'all remember. I'm going to go over what we're going to use or need for this project. First, the house. Second, power port. It's just like the standard 4.5 volt ones you get from Lemax that are incorporated in the house. Using a 12 volt power supply with an inline off-on switch. Reason being is, when you get to your lights, the next thing you need, this little fella, because it's FCC compliant for interference, Sometimes when you turn your TV on or off or change the channels, it'll turn your house on or off or change the colors. A lot of TV remotes have similar frequencies to that. Just like this, you can change the channels on your television. Some televisions. I have a television that if I point this at it and start pressing random colors, it changes the channel. So we're going to allow an anti-interference switch, basically. Want to make sure the house is off? Just click, won't turn on, click, turns back on. So that way there's no ghostly turn-ons because of some random interference. Also going to need 2-wire for the power. It's just 2-wire LED wire, red-black, and 4-wire for the LEDs when we cut them and make strips, which is, well, red, green, blue, and black. Red, green, blue, match the red, green, blue on the lights. And then the black would be the common, in this case would be the power wire. So, get a little bit better view of this if you haven't seen RGB light strips before. Let's get the tape off that holds it from uncoiling. If you notice, let's get some of the glare out of here, turn off that light. There's copper pads right there, and the 4-pin right here. Copper pads say R, B, G, common, or, yeah, common on this string. R, B, G, common, black. These are positive in with a negative switch, which means the positive is on the common line, and then the RGB is switched. There are lights out there that are reversed, so you just got to make sure that if you get one with a controller, that you understand that it has a symbol on it. It says plus minus right there, that you get them in the right order. Generally, LEDs won't burn out if you reverse polarity, but it can happen, and it does happen. So, tools, we're going to need snips, strippers, and a soldering iron, whether you use a soldering gun or a pen like I normally do. I have both. But you're also going to need alcohol. And some way to clean inside the house. These strips are self-adhesive. Just peel the back off. It's got 3M tape. But porcelain's probably not clean. It's going to have to get cleaned. The best cleaning agent I know of is isopropyl alcohol, 91% or higher. This is 99. You can get this on Amazon. So, and then to get in here to clean, you're just going to use some long cotton swabs. You can get them at the drugstores or what have you. I got some that they're no longer permitted for medical use. They are expired. So I picked a whole bunch of these expired ones up for free from my doctor's office. Some of these have stuff on them, some of them don't. So if you do get stuff like this from a doctor's office for free and you want to use them for cleaning, get the dry ones, not the ones that are pre-lubricated. This one is not. It's just a sterile cotton swab. Yeah, this is 2 6-inch with the wood sticks, and this one's got a plastic stick. That's what these came out of with this package. Well, these type of packages. I opened a couple in advance, so I didn't have to open them on camera and make all sorts of noise. But the reason I like these for cleaning certain things inside a house, they're good for electronics. Anytime you use alcohol, Q-tips work too, the name brand stuff. But these long ones allow me to get inside and clean the base and remove any debris. And I can also use the long needle nose pliers and a paper towel or tissue. Problem with tissue is it leaves cotton dust. Some paper towels do too. These generally don't fray, generally. So it's always that exception. So first thing you need to do is figure out approximately how long the inside is. So these are 1-inch squares. And I'm just going to line the outside edge of the house up with the square. And this house is approximately 8 inches. So taking in for the thickness of the walls, we'll say it's about 7 inches. 7.5. So, and these copper pads, that's where you cut to make them, shorter. So let's do about 7 inches. It's right there. Yeah. So these pads are approximately 1.5 inches apart from each other. 1 inch and 7/16, maybe 1 1/3 inches at the minimum. So we're going from 15 to 22 for the 7. I'm going to have to do it just under 8 or just under 7. I'll probably just do it under 7 so I don't have any lights falling over on the inside. You can cut them with snips, wire cutters, or scissors. So, and there's a little dotted line that you cut on, and so, and we'll do it again. I believe we can probably get 2 to 3 rows in there. So let's see if we can get 3 in there. Make it really bright. So line that up. Cut the next one. Alright, I'm going to show you something since it's happening right now. There's copper pads, as you see. But every once in a while, when they make these strips, they're not 6 feet or 16 feet or whatever length you get them in. They're usually soldered. You can see there's a solder joint right there where they soldered the strip to the next strip. So if you got good scissors, you can cut through the solder. If you have crappy scissors, it'll probably break. And then if you're worried about damaging the blade, use wire cutters. Don't use scissors. You are cutting through metal, since solder is a form of metal. Next tool you're probably going to need, or what I'd recommend, is a razor knife. The reason I recommend a razor knife is you can get a nice clean cut through this gel coating, if you get the ones with the gel coating. Not all of them have this coating. These are weather resistant, which means that they you can get wet. If you keep them in the sun, though, this gel coating or the silica coating, it will turn yellow or yellowish brown. Because I do use these type of strips on a lot of different things. So, I scored it and peeled it back, and now I'm just going to use some snips to cut it off. Now I like to cut off extra. You just need to expose the pads. I always cut off a little extra, so if the soldering iron touches anything, it doesn't melt or burn this silicone or whatever they're using as a coating. So. There's 2. And let's get this third one. The first one won't need anything extra because it's got the 4 pins, so I just need 1 end exposed. The last one in the set only needs 1 end exposed, so the one that goes in the middle needs both ends exposed. So I'm going to have to strip both sides. Yeah, once you break the seal with a sharp object like an X-Acto knife, you can peel this completely clean of the silicone if you don't want it on there. Or you can buy the LEDs without it. And again, it may not be a silica coating, it could be a resin. It doesn't say. So, just to give you an example, turn the house upside down so you can see that it goes almost the entire length of the house, including the garage. The only problem I might have is getting 3 strips in the garage. The doorway may not allow 3 strips side by side like so to go in. If that's the case, then 1 strip I'll cut off another 1.5 inch section. That way I can get at least 2 strips in the garage. So, try and flatten them out a little bit so they're not so curly when I stick them in. Next step's the cleaning process. We've got to clean the inside of this, check our layout, I'm going to do some soldering. So, get that alcohol over here. If you ever get 99%, it's really strong. I recommend not leaving the cap off. Also, it'll evaporate faster. Let's do some. Let's mop the floors. Also gonna do a little bit on the pad where the coffin goes. Another tool you might need will be glue. Gorilla Glue is what I'm using because it has the brush applicator, but it'll allow you to put dabs of glue on the stuff you're adding, so that way if the adhesive doesn't hold 100%, the glue will help. I usually put the glue on the edges of the track, on the sides here, to help ensure a positive adhesion. It is turning brown. It's not as dirty as I thought it'd be in here. I thought for sure this thing would be nasty. Also, we're going to need the glue to put the stuff back in the front window. Alright, let's get another stick. In the front window. Good. Of course, if your front window piece fails, you're going to need some long pliers. The double articulating ones allows you to get into tighter spots, so you don't have to open them as far. Because of course, we need to put this thing back in that front window. I'm cleaning up some of the glue, which is a hard resin glue that you have on here. I think the first thing I'm going to do is get this back in the front window. I normally like to put glue on that base down there. That's what I like about this. It's got the brush applicator. Let's see if I can do this without dropping it inside the house. Alright, it actually worked. I'm surprised. I'm going to stick an extra thick coat on here so it takes longer to dry. It gives me a longer time to fiddle around getting it in the window where I need it. It's like that game of Operation, except I'm touching the sides. You missed the window. I don't know how that's possible. Come on. Stop trying to glue yourself to the wall. There we go. Alright, let's try this again. Alright, well this might take a whole bunch of attempts. Might be one of those where I have to stop and play with this for half an hour. It'd be like that meme, 3 hours later. Might actually get it in the frickin' window. Problem I'm having is when I put the pliers in there, I can't see. They take up the whole hole. So, let's try it this way. So I can see it through the window. Sees it through the window. Well, there's my problem. See my problem now. It doesn't fit that way. I have to put it in and turn it. Oh yeah, there we go. Now it's in the window. Sideways. Need another one of those big sticks. I'm using a skewer rod to help try and turn it, because the wood's going to be a little nicer to the porcelain than my metal pliers, because it's in the window, it's just sideways. I wish I could show you this, but unfortunately I cannot. I can show you the end product once it hardens. Centered. That's centered. And let's try and put some downforce on it. Oops. Get back. There we go. So apparently if that ever falls out, pliers get it in there, put it in sideways, then let it rest. Use something that's not hard that can crack or chip the porcelain. Skewer. I was going to use another swab, but it's not long enough. So use like an old wooden skewer or a dowel, plastic rod. You could use a long screwdriver if you want. It's just metal generally. And then turn it into the window. Now I just hope there's enough super glue on there to let it adhere. If not, I'll add some more, not a big deal. Doesn't appear to be moving. It smells good. Well, hopefully you can see it in the window now. So, wanted to get that in. Totally forgot. Now let's work on the lights. What I'm going to do with the lights first is see how many I can fit in here. This is the garage. To redo this a little bit. Use the holes in the bottom. Well, that's a lot easier. So that one's in. Get that skewer. Probably only be able to get one light strip into the garage. Might be able to get two because it's not a clean entrance between the house. Looks like this was cast first, this was cast second, and they were adhered. And there's a very jagged hallway or doorway in the middle. And it's afraid to break the piece off that's blocking because I'm afraid it might separate the two parts. I'll probably get 3 in here and 1, maybe 2 sections in here. But what I'm doing, you can see there's 2 holes. And I was feeding it in through these holes so it's flat on the bottom. So I'm going to have to put them in, probably through the hole, and then press down through the door, the garage, and this hole to get these to adhere using the double back tape. So that's one. Let's see if I can get number 2 out. Number 2 is stuck on that jagged piece of porcelain inside. So let's see if I can snake it out. Set that over there. Alright, so I am going to solder jumper wires from here to here, and then from here to this one, So it's going to go like an S. And then I'm going to try and feed them in and stick them down. And then if they don't stick very well, put super glue or Gorilla Glue on it to help hold it. I'll probably hold it through the window with the stick. So, in theory, very easy house. In actuality of doing it, slightly harder. But we got the first part glued in, so the little village and the window is back where it's supposed to be. And next part is this. You've seen me solder in the past, so I'll go ahead and get all the jumpers cut and soldered so it's not wasting 20 minutes of time or 30 minutes of time. Get them all soldered out and figure out the curved layout for them. And then we'll get these put in. We'll get the IR sensor figured out next as far as location. Where we're going to have it sticking out, and of course once we stick this on right here, so I'm going to tape it so that way it doesn't wiggle out inside the house, because it'd be almost impossible to plug this back in without possibly damaging the house. So this is going to be adhered together so it stays. So I'll return shortly once these are all soldered up. Alright, we're back. I cut myself some 2-inch jumpers, soldered them on. See the lights work. We got white, red, green, blue, yellow, pink, purple, orange. Hopefully they look similar on your monitor, because LEDs don't always show up correctly on cameras because they're true color. But off, on. Works like it's supposed to. It retains its memory, so I turn it off, turn it on, turns off at whatever color I tell it to. I can make it dimmer. I can make it brighter, which may not show very well on camera. And then I can have it do different effects. So. Same as what I use in the Iron Man mask video. So, it took, I don't know, 15 minutes to cut, strip, and solder all the wires. I pre-tinned everything like I normally do, and I used flux on the light strips. Just because that's why it kind of looks maybe discolored right here. That's the flux. The flux is a dark maroon. And then once you get it hot, it turns kind of a brown. So that is the flux. And you see, the reason for the 2-inch is so when I fold them over and try to slide them next to each other, you get a nice arc. And hopefully it won't put too much stress on the copper pads, on the thin paper strip that we call the LED strip. Try and stick them in like so. Worst case, if it curls a little or tips sideways, it's not going to look horrible. Because the inside of the house is white, the light's going to reflect off the inside and bounce around. I'm going to do my best to try and keep them pointing up. So, light strips are pretty much ready. Over here in the corner is the stripped insulation. Next is the extension of this. So, I'm going to pull out the X-Acto knife. And I'm going to cut on the side. I'm not going to cut on the flat here. I'm going to cut on the side. And this is just heat shrink. I'm going to cut this off. I'm not just stabbing through it. I'm actually slowly cutting through it and going back and forth until the tip of the X-Acto knife cuts through. Because there are electronic components in there that we don't want to damage or destroy. It just makes more work than either replacing it or repairing it. There we go. could technically cut through, since the bottom of the circuit board's got a plastic piece and the top of the circuit board has a plastic piece. I don't like to, because I have had a couple of off-brand ones where this wasn't plastic, thick, hard plastic. It was like a thin, really thin plastic, not much, about half as thick as this heat shrink. I've also had it where it's been like a piece of foam, really thin foam sheet, which the tip of your X-Acto knife will cut through. So. But anyhow, three solder pads. We're going to desolder them. Use some 4-wire. We're just going to strip it down to 3, and I'm going to extend this. I want to extend it. I'm still debating on where to put it. The front window, I'd block some of the houses. I might put it in the upstairs window so it's directly across from the hole in the back. Because that window's going to be hard to get to. Pretty much all of these are. This section here. The door means it has to be pointed in from an angle, because the porcelain can stop the signal from getting through to this little IR sensor. The coffin goes here. I don't want to put it over the top of the coffin where there's a hole, because then it'll break up some of the light. If I stick it behind this window, it might even cast a little shadow, like somebody's looking out, seeing what's going on. So it's important to remember which way this is on. So the bulb side is on the top. If you were to take this off and solder around upside down, you can damage this, but most likely you're going to damage the small chips that are underneath here. So when you extend these, try not to mix them up. I need some helping hands. I need a third hand, so helping hand. Normally I would try and flex this. I'm trying not to. It might just pop off. There we go. That's one. 2, 3. So the pads are off. I'm just going to use the tip of the soldering iron to get the solder off of this. And I'm going to put some flux on that pad though, and then put some new solder there. Alright. Coming off a section of 4-wire. It's approximately 7 inches long. That's why I need 3. Going to just take one off, get rid of it, peel back half an inch or so of the 3 wires. The reason I'm peeling it back is so I can strip them, separate. Oh, that broke. Strip them, separate them, and then tin them. You can, if you want, keep them together, but you risk having the wire, because it's twisted copper wire, touching each other when you solder them together onto the, or excuse me, solder them to the board. You don't want to solder the 3 wires together. That would be pretty much anti what we're trying to do. Anti-functional. The solder I use is lead. It works better. I have a fan going. The editor removes some of that noise so you don't hear it. That's why the smoke doesn't just wisp up to the camera. It blows off to the side. You don't want to breathe the fumes if you can avoid it. I actually have a filter fan and 2 regular fans just to get the fumes out of here while I'm working. I normally only run 1 at a time, but I do have 3 different types. So if you do this at home, one of the easiest ways is as you're soldering, you just carefully and slowly exhale, and it blows the smoke away from you. Don't go like that. A couple of reasons. 1, you don't want to pass out from exertion of blowing too hard. 2, you can actually blow the liquid puddle of solder off of what you're doing, throw it away from you. So, I'm going to trim off some of the excess that I did. It doesn't have to be as long as they are. Better to be long and trim than short and have issues. Tin the leads on here. If these didn't tin very well, I'd dip them in the flux. But so far, they tin just fine. And make sure they're in the same way. Green's on the right, red's in the middle, blue's on the left. Now I'm going to test it when I'm done, and then so you don't think it's going to touch each other and become a short and it's not going to work right. You can use hot glue, but I'm going to use liquid electrical tape, and I'm going to paint these leads so they're protected. So let's plug our lights back in. So. Yeah. And plug this end back in like so. Get the controller. better connection. And then we got blue, red, green, yellow. So we know that the solder is good. We know that we didn't cross anything. Plug it. Right now I'm just using the USB to test it before we cut that off and change it to a barrel jack. Move the lights out of the way. So I just got some, well, this time it's Dorman. In the past it was some other company. Liquid electrical tape, which is just this black goop that kind of reminds me of rubber contact cement as far as the smell. It's just black versus that clearish yellow. So we know that it works. And now we're just going to paint the exposed metal. Try not to paint too much of the sensor, because this acts as a cover and can also cause you not to get a good reading. This bulb on the front, because if you ever look at this, it's a rectangle, but there's a bulge on the one side. The bulge on the one side is your IR LED. I'm also going to put a little bit on this end, since we cut off the heat shrink to do this. You can put heat shrink back on this, it's not a problem. But just to help give it a little extra protection, I'm going to cover the solder joints that I just did right there. And let's see what I have for heat shrink. I have a piece of yellow that's already pre-cut to just about the right size. Fold the power wires back over. So there we go. Yep, so I'm going to do the heat shrink with the liquid electrical tape. Because I want the new owner of this house to have a functioning house that can hopefully last for many years, and if something happens, that this helps protect the house. At least the circuitry. Well, you can use a blow dryer or lighter to do this too. It's 100 degrees centigrade, 212 degrees Fahrenheit is what I have it set at. You could use black, red, green, blue, whatever color you want for your heat shrink. So I just had a piece of yellow sitting in my drawer that was the correct length. There we go. Beautiful. If you have a colored one, red, green, black, blue, or excuse me, anything but black, you could use a marker and mark which is your common. So put a little red line that says this is my common, or a black line, or a blue line, whatever color you want to use. So you know if you plug the LEDs in upside down. Which if you saw, I had to pull it out, turn it, and plug it in, because I did plug them in upside down. So it does happen, and you saw they still function. It's not a lot of power, and generally LEDs won't get damaged if you do it. I know on these light strips they don't. I've done it so many times because I go around marking them too fast, or I forget to mark them. We all make mistakes. So, beautiful. Just make a little room to get to the next step. Next step, which is always the fun one, is going to be feeding all this inside the house. Not looking forward to it, I'm not going to lie. And then, the very last piece is putting this in, making sure it's correct as far as the direction, and then putting some electrical tape around it so it doesn't separate, which I do. So I was hoping I had some electrical tape. I do. If you do anything with electrical tape, I will always recommend buying the Scotch brand. You can kind of see inside. It's always printed on the inside. Scotch 3M. It's the only company I use, and at my company, it's the only company we use because it sticks. and it works. I don't use the cheap stuff anymore. I've learned through many attempts at fixing it. Here's an original Scotch. It just says Scotch. It doesn't say 3M. No, it does. Never mind. But I use two different types as far as I use like a 733 and a 700. These are 700s. I use 733s on cars. It has a higher temperature rating. Cars are generally hotter than your houses. You don't know that because under the hood. And if you do, I'd love to see it. And then ask you why. So. Cheap electrical tape will get you in trouble. Or give you a lot of trouble. However you want to look at it. So. Alright. And for the first section. To go in first. If you're interested, you can always comment below and tell me why you got into miniature houses. I personally got into them back in the 2000s, early 2000s, probably 2000, when I first saw my first ones over at Michael's. And I am a big Halloween guy. I like Halloween. Loved it ever since I was a kid, and when I was too big and too old to trick-or-treat, I started doing my own haunted houses at the house, which got bigger and bigger every year. And then I started building props for haunted houses. Professional ones, not your neighborhood ones. Done a couple. And since I couldn't own my own haunted house, I figured I'd set up my own haunted village. And that's how I got into all these little houses. And then I got into fixing them because nobody does. And if I'm spending this much money on these things, I want them to work. There we go. It keeps getting caught in that piece that separates the two houses. And since I've been fixing my own houses for many years, when I finally moved where I'm at, and all the couple of friends and some family members were like, you should start filming the stuff you do. We do crazy and stupid things, which a lot of people do. And then I do custom builds with Random Junk, which is the name of the channel. This was born because I've built props for haunted houses and props for movies literally out of junk. Just random junk. Stuff you would throw away, I turned into something that a movie studio would want, or a video, film, music video, etc. would use. The difference is I don't usually get credit for it. That's the agreement I make with them. As you do prop building and stuff, unless you're like Adam Savage, Jamie Heineman levels of stuff, you don't get paid a lot. And a lot of times they'll say, well, we'll put your name in the credits in exchange for payment. My name in the credits doesn't pay my bills. So, but after doing stuff like that, and everybody's seeing what I do, and because I don't normally sign disclosure agreements where I can't show people what I've done, I started filming some of the stuff, but I saw that a lot of people on different forums had issues with their Lemax houses, and that's what got me into filming these repairs and modifications, is because there is no support system. Everybody's got to do their own. And I just do it off the cuff. I have no clue. I don't know how they come apart. I don't know how they're made. Lemax doesn't send me information, although I've asked them if they'd be more than, nice to send me, just like the types of gears they use, so I don't have to take apart electronics every day to find more and more gears. Or tell me the place where they get their motors from, so I can get the motors and not have to take apart 100 different pieces of electronics to find one that fits. Because most of the stuff that Lemax does doesn't have part numbers. You take apart your CD player, old Walkman or something, the motors have a part number. Case in point, came out of a Walkman. It's a part number. This big old motor came out of a tabletop cassette player. The big one that has the 2 cassettes so you can dub your own music has a part number. Take apart these things, not a damn thing. So I just sent them an email saying, hey, fix your stuff. I help people fix their stuff. Is it possible that you can send me just a part number or 2? And dead silence. It's kind of sad. I'm not asking for the schematics or the copyrighted information. All I want to know is, heck, don't even give me the part number. Just tell me who it was made by. I can contact them. I have an electronics business. I have a business license. I can call them up myself. That's one of my things. This tells me the part number is made in Japan, and I can look up this part number, and it'll tell me the manufacturer of this motor. Or the manufacturer of this motor. But this one's actually on here. This is a Mitsumi. And this is a worm drive that makes your CD player eyeball go back and forth, your laser, to read the disc. So that's all I asked, but of course nothing from them, no response. It's kind of sad, but I understand at the same token. They have a company, they make custom products, they don't want people stealing their ideas or patents, and as far as I know, technically these houses are considered long term because they're not technically repairable. It's one of those things that once you own it and it breaks, you just either keep it as a static prop or you throw it away. I can't do that. I spent too much money on these things. I want to make sure I get as much life as possible out of them. for as long as I can. Here's my dog barking at some random noise outside. Alright, why did the light flip over? Yeah. Here it is. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how you all out there got into this hobby of collecting. And maybe your additional part of trying to fix them yourself, whether you fix them yourself or watch these videos to fix them. It'd be interesting to know. There's a thing going around on Facebook right now that says, if you did your childhood dream, what job would you have? Might sound weird, but my childhood dream was to own a haunted house. Since I couldn't own one, I did props for a couple here locally, some big ones, and then I, back in 2000, started collecting my own village to make it look like a haunted town. Hundreds of pieces later, I have a haunted town with all sorts of characters, all sorts of houses. These are going to have to be glued in. As you saw, I was just putting glue through the door. They're not sticking worth a damn. I didn't think they would. But I got the lights in. And I'm just going to have to pour a whole bunch of frickin' glue in there. But let's get some basic idea of what it looks like. Let's kill some lights. Sorry, it's upside down. The USB cord's still a little on the short side. There's blue, green. Got some random colors here that I'm just pressing. White. See, I'm dimming the light. It's as dim as it gets. So I'll re-brighten it here. Get where the sensor went. There it is. It's getting brighter again. Overpowering the camera. Speed up the strobe. Let's put the casket back in the garage. There, helps break up some of the light so it's not so blinding to the camera. So next is finish gluing it all in, letting it sit for a while to harden, then sticking in a power port and hooking it up to 12 volts versus 4 or 5 volts through the AC adapter for a cell phone. USB AC adapter. Gives you an idea. I know it's upside down, but at least you have a basic point. It is a lot of light. It is actually bleeding through the walls of the porcelain. This house isn't reflecting the red back, which it does kind of look cool. The light is so bright it is actually overpowering the density of the porcelain. So, but I like the effect. It doesn't look bad on camera. It kind of looks like there's a red light flooding it from the outside, but it's actually from the inside. The green has the same effect. So does the blue. It's not as noticeable in person. The camera picks it up really well. In person, it's not as noticeable. Oh, the yellow is really obvious. Let's try white. Yeah, white's pretty obvious too. But that is a lot of light. We're only talking like 21 inches of LEDs. So, off, on, everything works like it's supposed to. So let's turn on some lights, start filling this bad boy with some glue to hold everything in place, and then get the power port hooked up so she can plug it in with 12 volts and have a master controller to turn it off and on. Clean up some of this trash, clean up the workbench a little bit. So we'll be back once everything's hardened. I'm sure you don't want to see me sitting inside with a pair of long pliers and super glue or Gorilla Glue and paint all the light strips so they stick better. And I'll probably also stick this on at the same time since I'm going to have it out. But yeah, it sounds like a fun time. And I don't want to subject you to it. So we'll be back. In my world, God knows how long. In your world, just a matter of seconds. Alright, I had to let this sit overnight. The super glue wasn't bonding very well, so I used clear Gorilla Glue to bond the lights to the insides. This takes 24 hours to set, so it's been about 23 since yesterday. And the IR sensor, well, I did use the super glue on this part though, right here, the coffin. But the lights, I wanted to have all 3 strips on the bottom, kind of in a zigzag pattern. Unfortunately, that didn't work. So I have one across the bottom, and then the rest go up the sides and run down and back around. So it goes kind of illuminates from all directions, which is why when we plug it in, the whole house lights up pretty evenly, which I'm surprised. But it's what I had to do to get the lights in there, since it's a lot of light strips to stick inside. It was at 21 inches of light strips plus another, 4 inches of spacers. So I did get the IR sensor glued into the front window. I know it's upside down in the video, which is fine. Might be a little hard to tell in there. I actually had to use a, believe it or not, Gorilla Glue glue stick to get it to stick, because neither one of these would stick to the inside. Again, even though I cleaned it with alcohol and the big cotton swab, I was not getting any adhesion. So there's something about the porcelain that is very specific to what kind of glues or adhesives you use. So it does work. Just to show you, I'll plug it in real quick. We're still going to use the USB right this moment. So I'll plug it in. And you can see it's glowing. You can see the hole in the back. So now we need to deal with this wire, install this plug, so we can use this with this jack. This jack, the center's hot, the outside's ground or negative, just like a lot of them are. You have to read the symbol with the plus and the C and the circle, like that. So I measured this hole, it's 1.2 inches. So I made a 1.2 inch circle on this PCB board, or wafer board. What I'm going to do is, this plug on a lot of Lean-Max houses sits in and points out. So it'd be like right here as an example. Can't do it on this, where if you plug it in, there's a chance you're going to push it all the way through, and that would be bad. We don't want that. So I'm going to drill the holes out in here, stick this through so it's going to point down, and then solder the wires to the back side, to the pins. This pin in the back is the center. This pin in the front and the side are the outer sheathing or negative. Once I do that and get it soldered, I'll stick this inside the hole, and I'll probably put a dab of hot glue at the top and the bottom, and then fill it with another 24-hour set glue. That way it's a guaranteed stronger hold. So that means the house would have to sit for another day, just fine. We're going to get it done. We want it to last. We want to be able to unplug it and plug it without, hopefully, pushing anything inside. So, this type of board you can cut with a saw, you can cut with, well, yeah, basically a saw. You can cut it with snips, which is how I normally do it, but sometimes the board will crack, so you gotta be careful. But like a bandsaw or a jigsaw works pretty good. I'm not going to cut it right this second because I want something to hold on to make these holes bigger so I can slide this bad boy in. So, and what I'm going to do for that is a battery operated drill, mini drill. It's a lot of these are used for PCB boards, and then you get the micro boxes with them where you can get the small drill bits. So, I already have a hole started. That was my center hole for making the circle, the disc. So I'm going to drill that one out. Yeah, kind of noisy. Should have warned you in advance. And then I'm going to mark the other two holes I need to do to get those prongs to fit through. Grab a marker. We need that right there, and that one right there. Noise again. And see while you. Oh, there we go. Folded one of the pins down a little bit when I dropped it. I apparently do not have the hole big enough. You can also use a Dremel, small rotary saw. I just have these mini drills that I picked up, believe it or not, at Goodwill. There's a bag of 2 for like $10, and they work perfectly. Wish I had a little bit longer battery life, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. So, there we go. So the drill bit I picked was just a hair too small. I should have gone up to the next size. But, just use the edge and work it out a little bit, oval the hole. We're good. I'd rather be a little too small and make it tighter than too big and have it extremely loose. Because then it stays and I don't have to worry about pulling it off. So. Flush cutters. I'm going to cut one row farther forward than where my circle was, because as you saw how fast that just snapped off, it's like trying to break a graham cracker. It's extremely fast and extremely brittle. So I have some mess to clean up. The stuff shoots all over the place. Should probably wear some safety squints for this. Heck, if you have a sanding setup, you can even use like a drum disc or belt sander and just grind it off too. I don't feel like going outside and getting some power tools, so we're just gonna carefully work at chipping it away. Like so. Rough circle. Let's see where it's going to go. Now, a lot of people are leery of USB cords because there's so many little wires inside. We're only needing 2 wires, and technically when I cut this, I cut it about there. There should only be 2 wires inside this thing. Some real wire strippers versus just working my way at it with the flush cutters, because I want to try and just get the outer insulation off like that. And yep, just 2 wires. If this was a USB phone charger, as an example, you'd have 4 wires, a red, a black, and sometimes like a pink and a white, or a green and a blue. Every company's USB cable uses a different color code. So red is the hot, black is the ground or negative. There you go. Problem with small wires is the smallest setting on here, which is 20-22 gauge, is usually not small enough. And I'm gonna solder through. I guess I should have turned on my soldering iron. Get the solder. Now I would normally tin these, as you see me do a lot, but I want these to actually feed through the little holes that are in this barrel jack. If you tin it, sometimes it won't fit because the thickness of the solder makes it not fit in its hole. And we got it through. What I'm doing is folding the wire up, so that way the wire is looped in. So my fat finger doesn't fit, so that's why I'm using the back side of the X-Acto knife to fold the wire over. Soldering iron's up to temperature. And let's get this soldered. Alright, here's one. Let's get some tweezers, again, fat fingers. And I can use the tweezers to fold the wire over. And if you're doing something like this at home and you don't have a soldering iron, you can just pull the wire through and then twist it, and then put like a dab of hot glue or liquid electrical tape, something that's going to hold the wire in place and insulate it so they don't smack each other. Because then you'd have a short on your power supply. Alright, let's get some cord out of the rubber band. Plug in this big old power supply. Give it a test. Plugged in. No juice. Alright. Oh, something's not working. Just make sure I'm getting power out. That's the first thing I'm going to check. Put the switch on. 16 volts because there's no load. I guess I should probably move the voltmeter. There you go. Alright, I see what the problem is. I did not check this when I bought it. Most of the ones I buy, the outer two pins are ground. This one is the ground. This one doesn't do anything. So that is my mistake. We all make them. So I'm just going to heat up my solder and take the wire out. Maybe I've made it too good of a solder joint. So we'll do something else. Since I wrapped it really good with those tweezers, I guess you should probably check them in advance. Every one I've ever bought, the two were always linked. This is from a different supplier. I never tested it because I assumed, and you know what they say about assumptions. So I am wrong. On this one, the front pin is the outer sheath of your connector, and the rear pin is the center of your connector, and the outer edge is absolutely nothing, which means that it is most likely just a solder point for mounting it to a circuit board to give it stability. There are connectors out there like that, and apparently the batch I bought, I'll check them all later, since I bought a bag of 10, is that way. I'm only tinning one side, because the other side I'm going to feed through that hole. The side I'm tinning is the... Let's put that away before I burn something. The side I'm tinning is the side I'm going to connect to the one that I thought was ground. So this is why we test stuff before we do final assembly, is because things happen. Tweezers back. It's a rather large solder joint for this pen, so it's going to take just a second for it to heat the solder and melt. There we go. Let's clear that off. Take two. Plug it in. There we go. And just to show, green, blue, white, orange. You have to point it at that window. So you can see it from the back where you see the big hole. Blue, white, teal, yellow, purplish pink. That's purple. And strobe. And don't forget this has a switch in line. So there's a safety. Now, we're going to set this in here. And the reason I didn't sand the edges, normally I'd make the edges nice and smooth, is because I wanted it to be enough abrasive edges from the rough cutting that it wedges the fitting just enough that it holds it in the hole, and I can still plug this guy in, so, and I can fill it with 24-hour setting glue. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to glue in the connector, but what I am going to do is tack it with hot glue. So by using a dab of hot glue and like putting it a little here and a little here, it'll hold this at the level I need for this glue to set, and then we're good. And then technically the house is done. And then we can do the little display where I show it with the lights off or in low light conditions, so you can see all the different functions and colors again and see if you like it. Everything that I've done here, I've done other houses. My own especially. When I get any house that runs on a 120 volt incandescent light, I do not use those. I take them out and I stick my own lighting in them, whether it's the LED strips like this. Some are controllable, some aren't. One of the houses I have that's controllable isn't controllable by remote. It uses a momentary switch that when you touch it or tap it, it changes colors. So it's kind of an older technology, but it doesn't pick up interference from remotes. Another one I did is just a light strip in the bottom. It turns on and off when I give it power. And then I have purchased, I'll show you while my gun's heating up here. These are called LED flower boards. They're hard to get right now because of shipping from international points to the US. I get them from the UK. It's a little board. As you can see, it's a little smaller than a hole. And I solder the LEDs on, I stick it in the hole, and then I center it and either add some wood sticks across to hold it, and then I resin it in. Then I usually just super glue my connection, this part, the barrel at the bottom. Sometimes I'll stick them completely in, especially the ones where the light bulb comes in from the bottom. There's a lot of houses where the bulb comes in from the bottom and has a little notch for the cable. I'll use those because I'll have them in the very base. I'll glue them in with either super glue, the liquid Gorilla Glue, or hot glue. So there's lots of things you can do. Honestly, some of the funniest things I've done, or the easiest, is I've used those lights that come out of those toy wands that you get like at Halloween time that spin, and the little swords with the LEDs that run up and down. They run on 3 volts. Some run on 4.5 volts in the button cells. take them out, lay them in the bottom, solder the connector to one of these jacks so it fits in your 4.5 volt Emax connector, and then you can put a momentary switch or use the one that came with it, the little button that changes the options, and you have a multicolor, multifunction switch. I might rotate this 90. That way the cord goes straight down since it's a 90-degree head. So just going to hold it till the glue hardens in a minute or two, and then I'm going to fill it in with the thicker, harder Gorilla Glue. You want to try this stuff yourself? There's many options out there. Never be afraid to play with it. As long as you don't break the actual house itself, you're usually pretty good. There we go. Unplug that. Get rid of the hot glue snot. I'm just trying to level the house. There we go. So that way the glue doesn't just run to one side. So using my helping hands to rest it, and then using the one arm to lift under the edge, so that way the house is relatively level. Now this stuff isn't preferred for most people. I like this stuff. It's just the setup time is so long, which is 24 hours for full adhesion. But I have used this for stuff that goes underwater to seal it, and it works great. It's just you gotta let it sit for an entire day. Yeah. Full cure in 24 hours. 2 hours for objects that are clamped for binding. Now some of the glue did drip inside, and I'll check to make sure that it's not coming out of a window. But it's like gel. It's thick and it's super strong once it's hard. So and by going around the 2 drops of hot glue in 2 hours or so, I can actually peel those off, because this stuff will cure enough to bond, and then just do a whole new ring of the Gorilla Glue, clear Gorilla Glue. Should be good to go. So there's another stopping point. Sorry, again, it'll be just mere moments for you, but mere hours for me. And we'll get this finished up so it can be sent to its new owner. You all might have different ways of doing this. I try to do it this way so the light doesn't reflect back. If this is against a wall or in a nice display, I want something in the hole that stops the light from shining out. I have seen people use cardboard or paperboard, construction paper, tape. It all will work. I don't particularly like it, especially if I'm using it to pass electricity through. It's low voltage, but it can still get hot enough if it shorts out to ignite the paper on fire, or cardboard, or tape, like duct tape. So this is one way I do it. I have do it through the bottom, because there are some houses that have a bigger hole in the bottom, like the ones that were over here. I will put cardboard there and glue it just to stop the light from shining backwards. Sometimes like 2-liter bottle caps actually fit in there too, depending on the hole, where you can just drop the bottle cap in and then glue the edges. It also allows you to have a recess point for if you want to put LEDs in there, stick them through the bottle cap itself, make a little cup. Many options, many different ways of doing things. Whatever works for you is what I recommend. But for now, this is going to sit. I'll come back in a couple hours and check it. I'll peel off the hot glue, replace it with this, and then let it sit till tomorrow. And then tomorrow it should be cured enough to be just filmed one last time to show you the function, and then put in its box and shipped to the winner of the contest. Alright, it is sat overnight. It's now solid. So, plug it in, turn it sideways, so I can lay it on its back. That way it's actually the correct direction, not upside down for y'all this time. And flip on the switch. There it is in strobe mode. I'm going to go turn off some lights. There we go. This red, green, blue, teal, yellow. So, it is now done. It is extremely bright. It's bright enough that it's lighting through the porcelain. If it was hovering, you'd see the holes in the bottom. But since it's going to be sitting flat, and the disc is glowing, but it's not projecting out onto my hand. As you can see, you can see the white from the holes in the bottom. It's actually yellow, but it looks whitish. But my hand has very little projection. The projection that's coming is just a little bit on the edge, which is the rainbow color right there on my palm. But it's nothing like the disco effect that this is producing. And you look at the reflection on the so hopefully that is bright enough for what was requested. She wanted an extremely bright house that was dimmable, controllable, color changeable, and I added the additional of the inline off switch to prevent any refocus. Come on. Of course it's not. There we go. That'll make it focus. To make it resistant to interference from other remotes, whether it be this type or TV remotes. So, thanks for watching. Hopefully it wasn't totally a boring video. It's just how to build a house lighting system with a few mistakes along the way that got rectified. Everything that's custom, you always encounter issues. It's like that in my normal job. We do custom work. You build something custom because it's never been built before. Sometimes you have a failure or a mistake. So if you do something like this and you have a mistake, don't worry about it. Usually it's changeable. Do the Bob Ross thing. There are no accident. There's no mistakes, only happy little accidents. So the biggest mistake that I had was trying to fit those lights in the bottom. The second being the pole on this, not checking it. I should have checked that that pin on the side was a mounting pin only, not a ground pin like the other ones I bought. So, as you can see, with it being sideways, the profile is pretty flush because this piece is just slightly proud of the roof peak. It is actually very close to being square, so it should fit nice against a wall. Actually, with this piece that protrudes out right here, it would fit perfectly against the wall and be good. So that's the other reason I did this sideways, is to compensate for this. If you do something similar and your barrel jack is straight, point it down, point it sideways. I wouldn't point it this way because it would hit the roof if you're doing this piece as an example. So But that is the Halloween house giveaway with its custom lighting, where hopefully she enjoys it and she gets the full feature of controllable lighting, bright lighting, dimmable lighting, rotating lighting. So to the two winners, thanks for playing. To everybody who did enter with their different suggestions, thank you. We might do this again depending on if I come across another house or not. So everybody has a good Halloween or Halloween season. Some people it's a way of life, so a Halloween life. Other than that, thank you. Have a good one.